The footsteps always begin after 2 a.m., never earlier, never later. They follow the same distance behind me, slow and patient, stopping when I stop. I've tested that part. Tonight, standing in my hallway, I waited, listening to my own breath. I live alone, so the sound shouldn't exist. Bare feet on concrete, measured, unhurried, like someone conserving energy. When I turn my head, the rhythm pauses, as if whatever is behind me knows I'm counting each step. At first, fear isn't what I feel. It's confusion, heavier and more unsettling. The footsteps don't rush or threaten. They simply accompany me, from the bedroom to the kitchen, from the kitchen back, loyal as a shadow refusing light. At 2:17 a.m., they stop completely. Silence returns so abruptly my ears ring. That's when the worst part settles in. Not the walking, but the certainty that something decided it was done following me, at least for tonight. During the day, my life is unremarkable in a way I once found comforting. I wake early, leave for work before traffic thickens, and return after dusk. My apartment smells faintly of dust and detergent, predictable and dull. I work in an office where time passes softly, measured by emails and the hum of air conditioning. My coworkers know me as quiet but reliable. No one asks personal questions, which suits me. I've always preferred existing unnoticed. Evenings follow a simple rhythm. I cook something small, eat standing by the counter, and rinse the plate immediately. The television stays on low, more for background noise than attention. Silence has never bothered me before. I sleep lightly but without dreams, the kind of rest that leaves no emotional residue. Before all this, I rarely woke during the night. My body trusted the dark, trusted that nothing waited for me inside it. My apartment is on the ground floor, facing a narrow courtyard. The building is old, but solid. Pipes knock sometimes. Floorboards complain when the upstairs tenant walks. Ordinary sounds with familiar explanations. I keep my windows locked and my doors double-bolted, habits formed more from routine than fear. I've never felt watched here. The space has always felt neutral, almost forgettable, like it doesn't care whether I exist. On weekends, I clean, do laundry, and call my sister if I remember. Our conversations are brief, friendly, surface level. She lives far away now. I tell her I'm fine, because I always am. I don't drink much. I don't use anything stronger than coffee. My mind has never given me reason to doubt it. I trust my senses. I trust that what I hear belongs to the world. Before the footsteps, nights blurred together. Midnight passed unnoticed. 2 a.m. was just another hour slipping by while I slept. Unmarked, insignificant, harmless. Looking back, that's what unsettles me most. There was no warning, no shift in my life demanding attention. Everything was steady, balanced, and quiet, as if something had waited patiently for the right moment to begin. The first night it happened, I thought I'd misjudged the building's sounds. I woke briefly, disoriented, aware only of movement somewhere behind my closed eyes. Not loud, not urgent, just present enough to tug me toward waking. I lay still, listening. The sound came again, softer than expected, like a foot settling rather than stepping. I told myself it was upstairs, someone pacing, though the rhythm didn't quite match the ceiling above me. When I shifted on the mattress, the sound stopped. That detail lingered unpleasantly. Buildings don't respond to movement. Pipes don't wait. Still, I stayed still, counting seconds, daring the noise to return. It did, but differently. 2 slow contacts against the floor, separated by a pause that felt deliberate. I noticed then how close it sounded, not muffled by walls or distance, but crisp, intimate. I sat up, heart steady but alert, and listened harder than I ever had before. The apartment felt subtly rearranged, as if sound carried differently. The air seemed thicker, resistant to movement. I told myself I was half asleep, caught in that shallow place where perception lies. The brain invents patterns there. I'd read about it. Hypnagogic hallucinations. A convincing explanation, neat and clinical. Still, I didn't turn on the light. I waited, eyes fixed on the dark outline of my door. The sound didn't cross the threshold. It remained somewhere behind me, undefined, unclaimed. Eventually, fatigue outweighed curiosity. The silence returned gradually, like a held breath released. I lay back down, annoyed more than frightened, already rehearsing how I'd forget it by morning. When I woke, sunlight filled the room normally. Nothing felt off. No marks on the floor, no displaced objects. The night receded into something small and unimpressive, easy to dismiss. Except, while brushing my teeth, I realized I'd gone to bed facing the wall, yet remembered the sound as coming from behind me, from the open space I hadn't been looking at. I decided the mind prefers patterns, even false ones. It connects dots out of boredom or fatigue. I told myself I'd woken during a sleep cycle shift, when the brain borrows from dreams and overlays them onto reality. The next night, I prepared for it like an experiment. I went to bed earlier, avoided screens, kept the room cooler. If it happened again, I'd have data. That thought comforted me more than it should have. At 2 a.m., nothing happened. Relief arrived quietly, smug and validating. I almost laughed at myself, the tension dissolving into embarrassment. Whatever I'd heard before was clearly a fluke, my mind filling empty space. I rolled over, relaxed, and closed my eyes. That's when the sound appeared, not suddenly, but already in motion, as if it had been walking long before I noticed. One step, then another, patient and restrained. I didn't move. I reasoned through it carefully. The downstairs neighbors sometimes returned late. Sound travels strangely at night. Bare feet carry differently than shoes. All of this made sense if I didn't examine it too closely. When I shifted my arm, the steps paused. That correlation annoyed me. I explained it away immediately. Coincidence feels intentional when you're looking for it. The brain is excellent at false alarms. I forced myself to sit up and turn on the bedside lamp. Light flooded the room, ordinary and reassuring. No movement followed. The sound didn't retreat. It simply wasn't there anymore. I walked the apartment, barefoot, testing the floors. Each surface produced a different tone. None matched what I'd heard, but close enough if memory softened the details. Memory lies easily under pressure. Back in bed, I wrote it off as stress, though nothing in my life justified that label. The explanation felt thin, but it was the best one available, and I clung to it. Before sleeping, I checked the clock. 2:19 a.m. I remember thinking how absurd it was to assign meaning to a number. I turned off the lamp, convinced the issue was settled. Just before sleep claimed me, I noticed something small and deeply inconvenient. I could still feel the sense of being followed, even without the sound to support it. After that night, the footsteps returned with consistency that made denial harder. Always after 2 a.m., never announcing themselves, already moving when I became aware. Some nights they lasted seconds, others long enough for my legs to ache from stillness. I began waking just before they started, my body anticipating something my mind refused to name. I would lie there, eyes open in the dark, waiting for the first contact with the floor, dreading the confirmation more than the sound itself. The distance behind me changed. Sometimes the steps felt close enough to warm the air at my back. Other nights they lagged farther away, like someone distracted, drifting but unwilling to stop following altogether. Once I counted them. 7 steps, pause, 7 more. The pattern repeated twice before dissolving into randomness. I tried again another night, but the rhythm shifted immediately, as if counting offended it. I noticed they only followed when I moved. If I stayed perfectly still, the sound hovered, implied but unrealized. The moment I adjusted my position, even slightly, the steps resumed, carefully matching my pace. I tested this while awake, walking slowly from my bedroom toward the kitchen. With each step I took, another echoed behind me, offset just enough to avoid overlap, perfectly synchronized in delay. When I stopped, it stopped. The silence between us felt tense, shared. I waited minutes, then took another step. The response came instantly, closer than before, like it had leaned forward while waiting. I checked my reflection in the dark microwave door, expecting nothing and half expecting everything. I saw only myself, pale and tired, though the space behind me felt occupied, crowded with intent. Some nights the footsteps sounded heavier, deliberate, heel than toe. Other nights they were softer, almost careful, as if testing the floor, learning my apartment the way I already knew it. I started sleeping with the light on. It didn't stop the sound, but it made the room feel less permissive, less willing to host unseen movement. The footsteps continued anyway, unconcerned with illumination. I wrote notes in my phone, timestamps and descriptions, trying to regain authority over the experience. Patterns are easier to endure when documented. Still, reading them back made my skin prickle. The worst realization came quietly. The footsteps were never confused, never lost. They always knew where I was going before I did, adjusting their path the moment my intention formed. The night it became personal, I was standing at the sink, pretending to drink water I didn't need. The footsteps didn't trail behind me. They shifted to my left, adjusting as if anticipating where I would turn next. I froze, glass halfway to my mouth. The sound corrected itself when I leaned back, repositioning with unsettling accuracy. It wasn't reacting anymore. It was tracking, updating its place relative to me in real time. I whispered, "Hello," without planning to. My voice sounded fragile in the kitchen. The footsteps didn't answer, but they took one step closer, subtle enough to question whether it had happened at all. After that, the timing changed. The sound no longer waited for full movement. It responded to intention. When I thought about standing, it shifted. When I considered turning, it adjusted, staying just out of reach. I tested it by thinking about the front door without moving. The footsteps crept forward, slow and careful, as if approaching a finish line I hadn't crossed yet. My chest tightened with the clarity of that response. That night, I ran. Not far, just a few steps down the hallway. The answering steps surged with me, perfectly matched, so close I felt breath where none should exist. I slammed myself into the bathroom and locked the door. The footsteps stopped on the other side, not retreating, not pressing forward. They simply stood there, occupying the narrow space between waiting and listening. Minutes passed. My legs trembled from holding still. When I finally exhaled, the sound mimicked it. An almost step, a shift of weight, intimate and wrong, like a shared secret. From then on, it followed rules only I seemed to understand. It never crossed thresholds first. It never initiated movement. It stayed bound to me, tethered by something I couldn't see or break. I stopped walking at night. I crawled when I had to move, desperate and humiliated. The footsteps adapted, softening, lowering themselves, learning the sound of my palms against the floor. Sleep became fragmented. I drifted off only to wake with the certainty of proximity, of something aligned just behind my spine, matching the curve of my body with unnatural precision. The final confirmation arrived without drama. One night, standing still in the dark, I felt pressure between my shoulder blades, gentle and instructive, and the footsteps finally fell silent, no longer needing to follow. I tried telling someone, starting carefully, sanding down the edges so it sounded reasonable. The words fell flat immediately. Faces tightened with concern that had nothing to do with footsteps and everything to do with me. My sister listened longer than most. She suggested sleep studies, stress leave, meditation apps. Her voice softened in that way people use when they're preparing to disagree gently, permanently. I stopped mentioning the timing. I stopped saying 2 a.m. Saying it out loud made it sound rehearsed, obsessive. I could hear how it framed me, not the problem. A doctor asked if I'd lost interest in things I once enjoyed. I almost laughed. Enjoyment felt like a luxury from another lifetime. I nodded instead, because it moved the conversation forward. Friends drifted. Invitations slowed, then stopped. I canceled often, afraid of staying out late, afraid of returning home to an apartment that felt increasingly aligned against me. I searched online at night, careful with my phrasing. Sleep disorders, auditory hallucinations, anxiety symptoms. Every explanation bent toward me as the source, never the environment. The footsteps adapted to my isolation. Without witnesses, they grew bolder, closer, less concerned with subtlety. Silence became conditional, something I earned only by staying perfectly inert. I stopped trusting recordings. Audio apps captured nothing useful, just static and my breathing. Listening back made it worse, because the absence felt intentional, like exclusion. The building itself seemed complicit. Neighbors avoided eye contact. The hallway felt longer, narrower. Doors stayed closed. I couldn't remember the last time I'd heard someone else walking. Eventually, I stopped asking for help. Not because I didn't need it, but because I understood something clearly then. Whatever was following me thrived on being dismissed, and I was running out of people to doubt me. The realization didn't arrive at night. It came in the afternoon, quiet and humiliating, while reviewing an old security video I'd taken months earlier for an unrelated reason. I wasn't looking for footsteps. I was watching myself move. In the footage, I crossed my living room alone. The camera's microphone caught a faint sound behind me. Not a second set of steps, just one, slightly delayed, wrong in timing, like an echo misremembering its source. I slowed the clip frame by frame. Each time my foot touched the floor, another followed a fraction later, identical in tone. The delay wasn't distance. It was hesitation, as if the sound needed confirmation before committing. I checked older files, even recordings from years back. The same delay existed everywhere, subtle and ignorable until I knew to listen for it. My footsteps had never been alone. They had always been accompanied. The thought settled with sickening clarity. The thing following me didn't arrive after 2 a.m. That was just when the world grew quiet enough for me to notice the second version of myself lagging behind. It wasn't a presence in my apartment. It was a remainder. Every step I'd ever taken that I hadn't fully inhabited, accumulating, learning my pace, waiting until I slowed enough for it to catch up. I still hear the footsteps, but I don't turn around anymore. They stay close now, synchronized so tightly the delay has nearly vanished. Some nights, I struggle to tell which step is mine. I avoid mirrors when walking. Reflections introduce questions I'm not ready to answer. Occasionally, I feel lighter than expected, like something is carrying part of my weight from behind. 2 a.m. doesn't matter anymore. The sound follows me in daylight, masked by traffic and voices. Only in quiet rooms does the second rhythm surface, patient and familiar. Lately, I've noticed moments where the footsteps continue when I stop. Just one step too many, just enough to suggest that soon, I won't be the one setting the pace anymore.